Hello, thank you for joining us. This is Platform. I'm Ruth Aguela. The values of freedom, respect for human rights, and the principle of holding periodic and genuine elections are vital for any democratic nation. According to an American political scientist, Larry Diamond to be precise, democracy consists of 4 key elements: a political system for choosing and replacing the government through free and fair elections, the active participation of the people as citizens in politics and civic life, protection of the human rights of all citizens, a rule of law in which the laws and procedures apply equally to all citizens. Let's bring it back home. Nigeria consistently has gone through electoral processes, but one aspect of that process that makes a person eligible to vote is to have your permanent voter's card, that is the PVCs. As a body responsible for issuing the PVCs, there has been lots of concerns, especially regarding the process of registration and meeting deadlines. Yes. And going by Inec, there are more than 84 million registered voters in Nigeria. That is as at 25th of July. Even as the deadline draws closer, which is July 31st, many people of voting age are yet to get registered, especially with the increase in the number of citizens who have shown interest in the electoral process. Inec is left with no choice but to meet the demands of Nigerians. So you ask, what next after the deadline? Will Nigerians be able to meet up? Can the commission pull through? How many eligible Nigerians will be disenfranchised? Our focus on Platform is the continuous voters registration, the power. That is the voters' power, rather, CVR, the voters' power. And our guest is INEC's National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee, Mr. Festus Okoye. Of course, that's a regular face on all the media platforms. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Okoye.
Thank you so much.
All right. He is a man that needs no much introduction, but we'll tell you that he's a lawyer, human rights activist, and an expert when it comes to constitutional and electoral law. So let's leave it like that. We have a panelist, as usual, on Platform, and that is Mia Ogidi, our INEC correspondent in NTA. Mia, thank you for joining us on Platform.
Nice to be with you again, Ruth.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. So, Mr. Okoye, once more, welcome to Platform, and we're discussing CVR, the voters' power. The permanent voters card, or rather this continuous voters registration that will give you your PVC, is one aspect that Nigerians have all of a sudden taken seriously. You've seen the whole participation from Nigerians, how in terms of meeting the deadline of the CVR, which is just few days to go. How overwhelming is it for INEC?
Well, this commission prepared well. And we planned for the CVR, and I believe we prepared well. This is because after the 2019 general election, we did what we call both internal and external review of our processes and procedures, and we agreed that we need to resume the CVR in earnest. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic intervened and slowed down our processes and our procedures. But we also took into consideration the concerns of young Nigerians who are internet savvy in planning the current CVR. And that was why on the 28th day of June 2021, we rolled out what we call the online pre-registration platform, through which eligible Nigerians who have not registered before and those who are 18 and above did their pre-registration before going to go and capture their biometrics in our state and local government offices. Then in July 2021, after consultations with security agencies, political parties, civil society groups and organizations and the media, we rolled out the physical registration in our state and local government offices. So we have been on the issue of registration for 1 year. And we planned it in such a way that planning and spreading it out over a 1 year period was going to give us enough leeway to carry out the display of the voters register for claims and objections, and also to enable us print the permanent voters cards for the registrants on time. Unfortunately, within this particular period, despite extensive interventions in terms of media advocacy, in terms of consultation with community leaders and so on, sometimes our local government offices registered one individual a day. But towards the end of the period, we marked for the end of the voters registration period, there was this deluge of individuals coming forward to come and register. But we are managing that deluge, and I believe that the commission has a full hold and full control of the processes and procedures in relation to this CVR.
Are you surprised by the enthusiasm, shown by Nigerians? All of a sudden, it's never been like this. Are you surprised?
Well, I see it as an affirmation of the confidence the Nigerian people have in the processes and procedures of the Independent National Electoral Commission. I see it as an affirmation of the fact that Nigerians now realize that this commission has the courage and has the staying power to conduct free, fair, and transparent elections, and that their votes will count, and their votes are beginning to count. So I see it as an affirmation. Moreover, Nigerians have seen the power and the value of the vote in the elections we conducted in Edo, in Ondo, in Anambra, in Ekiti, and in Osun states. And Nigerians now believe that that permanent voters card they have has value, has power, and that their sovereign right to change their circumstances lies in their permanent voters card. And that's why people are streaming in and rushing to go and get their permanent voters card.
And as of 25th of July,
yes,
fresh registration about slightly above 11 million.
Yes.
And your target is 20 million, and we are left with just a few days to go. How possible is that?
Well, our projection was 20 million. But we believe that with the way we are going, at the end of the day, when we combine this CVR with our previous registration, we are targeting a total registered voter population of 95 million. So I think that what is important is that we have given Nigerian people the platform, the opportunity to get their names on the voters' roll. And we are emphasizing on the quality of the voters' register, because the voters' register is the foundation of the voting process. And if you don't have a clean voters register, if you have a voters register that is opaque, that does not command the respect of Nigerians and the political parties and the other stakeholders, the implication is that whatever election you conduct cannot be said to be credible. And so, if you realize, when we published the figure for the first and second quarter of the voters registration, that is the figure we had from the 28th day of June. 46% of multiple registrants. These are multiple and double registrants, and this is because we have the technology and we have the wherewithal to clean up the voters register, and that's exactly what we are doing. We want to give Nigerians a register that they can be proud of, and also a register that contains the names of persons who are genuinely registered to vote, the names of persons who are Nigerians, and also the names of persons who have attained the age of 18 and who do not suffer any legal disability in terms of the voting process.
Registration. What are the factors responsible? Because the exercise is still going, so that those that are still on the queues will not make such mistake of multiple registration.
Well, we have through different platforms, we have through different advocacy groups, and also through interventions, advise Nigerians that what we are doing is not a new registration. That this continuous voters registration exercise is for, one, those who have never registered in their lives, and two, those who attained the age of 18 between the last time we did voters registration in 2018 and now. That these are the new registrants who can register afresh. That every other individual who has registered before and has one challenge or the other does not need to register afresh. We've made it very clear that if you were living in Lagos and you have been posted to Kaduna, that what you need to do is to transfer your registration from Lagos State, transfer to a new local government, transfer to a new registration area, and to a new polling unit. So you don't need
this transfer going?
Services in our online platform. There's the service for new registrants, those who have never registered before. They can go online, do their registration, and then go and capture their biometrics in our state or local government office.
But some persons have complained that they try to update some of this information, maybe change of location. And it's not working for them. Why is that?
No, it has to be working for them because as at the 25th day of July, 2022, over 28,453,255 individuals have visited our online platforms and also done physical registration. So the implication is that people are visiting our platforms. And in terms of new registrants, those who have never registered before, over 10 million have visited our online platforms. And so our platforms are working. If the online platform is not working for you, you can also do the physical registration or the physical transfer.
Okay, that's another option, because part of the complaint is that when they log in their information, they're not even getting the data, their biodata. Come up.
There are two ways of approaching this particular matter.
Okay.
The first way is for you to know what is required of you. For you to have access to our online platform, you must have an email account.
Registered with the... Okay.
You have to have an email account.
Okay.
And then when you get into the platform, it takes you to the different services. If you're a new registrant, you go to the platform for new registrants.
Okay.
If you want to do transfer, you go to the platform for transfer. If you want to do voter review, you go to the platform for voter review. If you want to check where your PVC is, you go to the PVC locator.
Okay.
If you also have damaged PVC or you have lost your PVC, you go to damaged or lost PVC and remain on that particular platform. If you just want to do review of your voter information, you go to voter information review and review it. So if you want to do one service and then you are engaged in a different type of service, of course you are not in the correct platform, and the platform will not proceed in terms of getting you to your final destination. And that is really the challenge. He asked, why are we having all this challenge now? Why do we have double or multiple registrants? The truth of the matter is that there are two things responsible. One, the first I refer to as ignorance. The second is some persons trying to hide information. Some people who have lost their PVCs, rather than go to our registration officers and complain that they have lost their PVCs, they go and register afresh. And when you ask them, we have the data of, and then when we do what we call deduplication, we find out that you have registered before. And because you have registered before and you have registered again, make full disclosure to our registration officers so that they don't engage in an exercise in futility. If you have lost your PVC, going on with some of these double and multiple registrants.
Assume 5 million persons are passed away. So what is the commission doing about PVCs of diseased persons?
Now, there are two issues involved on, still even cumbersome. The implication is that, one, when we do what we call the display of the voters register for claims and objections, persons who are associated with those who have passed on will come forward with evidence to say we can use in a particular data for purposes of what we intend to do. Publication of the demise of past prominent individuals.
Yes, exactly.
And then we use...
What about the non-prominent ones who can afford...
Display, the name will be on the voters register. You are bearing a first name, you are bearing his name. His name will be on the voters, on the permanent voters card. The presiding officer will use the last 6 digits of his VIN number to call up the details. His details will be there because he's the registered voter. But you have to now put your fingerprints on the beavers to authenticate and verify that the person who has come to the polling unit with the permanent voters card is the person whose details we have there. And the moment you put your fingerprints, the beavers will reject your fingerprints.
Because it doesn't match.
Because it doesn't match. And then you will say, oh, you know, it's because I'm a farmer. Then the beavers will read their facials. And then it doesn't match. So the implication is that it is either you kept your fingerprints at home, or you kept your face at home. And then we'll ask you to go home and go and bring your fingers, and also go home and go and bring your face. So the implication is that you are engaged in identity theft, and we wouldn't allow you to vote.
Okay, so Mr. Okoye, this is something very dicey if we want to look at it, because we get to see that happen. People, go on day of election to impersonate what it's not theirs.
Yes.
And you are in charge of voter education, and there's a whole lot that the electorate need to know, because there are some things you're just revealing here that I'm hearing for the first time.
Yes.
So you can imagine millions of Nigerians who are out of place, who are ignorant, like you said, you mentioned ignorance. And what is the commission rather doing? Because I know it's not just, but you are in charge, but it doesn't fall on you alone. Voter education is one issue that has been hammered for a very long time. And it goes beyond just media sensitization once in a while. It has to be radical.
Yes. I completely agree with you. But one, the demography of Nigeria has changed. The geography of Nigeria keeps changing. Things keep changing. Prior to this particular period, we used to do what we call even door-to-door engagement. We used to do community engagements where we gather large crowds and so on and so forth to sensitize them and so on and so forth. But the COVID-19 pandemic intervened and limited the extent to which we can interact in terms of large crowds and so on. But things are shaping up, and we are going back to the normal ways of doing things. But as I said, the demography of Nigeria has changed. There are a lot of young people who are on different platforms, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and so on. We're also using those platforms to reach them. We are mobilizing with community leaders, and we're engaging with civil society groups and organizations, the labor movement, the student groups, and so on and so forth, for us to also reach as many people as possible. But in terms of people, somebody trying to impersonate, somebody going to the polling unit with somebody's with a card belonging to somebody and wanting to vote, that person does not need voter education. Because that person is trying to cheat. And somebody who is trying to cheat knows what he or she is doing. You can see that those who did multiple registration and those who attempted to suppress the votes by buying up people's voters' cards are now dumping those voters' cards elsewhere, because they have realized that they can no longer use it. The moment we drop the smart card reader and people can no longer use the incident form, they have now found out that those things they stopped are completely useless to them, and then they are dropping them by the roadside and so on and so forth. So I believe that technology has assisted this commission to move a step further and also to upgrade, and also believe that we must also reach the political parties and get them to do what is right. The moment Nigerians believe that the right things will be done, the moment Nigerians believe that their votes will count, the moment Nigerians begin to see a marked shift in the way things are done, Nigerians will engage the electoral process and re-engage the electoral process. This rush for PVC is because Nigerians now believe that there's a possibility, and I use the word possibility advisedly, that when they vote, their votes will count. Nigerians now believe that there's power in their PVC, because if there's no power in their PVC, politicians will not go to the polling unit to go and buy the votes. It is because we have blocked some loopholes through which people were manipulating the process. That's why Nigerians now are rushing to go and get their PVCs. So I believe that what is going on is more or less like a revolution in terms of our electoral process, and this commission wants to encourage that particular revolution. But it cannot go on ad infinitum, because we have started preparations for the 2023 general election in earnest, and there are processes and procedures, there are timelines, and there are schedules that we must conform to in order to be on top of the situation.
We experienced a burial that took place in River State, PVCs, and your commission also issued a statement. And today, I don't believe in online stories, but I was told even in Bielsa, some were discovered in uncompleted building. And you are saying that politicians cannot use them, that's why they are dumping them. But that is a big loss to the commission as well, because resources were put in there, and voters' turnout will be affected in some of those states. So are you not bothered? If you are, What is the commission doing to ensure that some of those politicians involved in such activities are taken to the court or anywhere so that others can learn from such?
Well, we are investigating. We are still investigating. Our state offices are on top of the situation, trying to get to the root of the issue. We've made reports to the different security agencies, to the DSS, to the police, and all the other agencies involved in relation to this particular issue. So I believe that very soon we are going to get a comprehensive report from our state offices on the extent to which they have gone to see and find out what exactly happened, how those PVCs came to be where they are. Because even as an individual, I saw four or five different videos trending. And when we analyze some of them, it's very, very clear to us that there's something amiss and that we need to get to the root of those things. If you bury a PVC for over a year or 2 years, when you bring them out, most of them will be defaced. But when you juggle PVCs and put them in a bucket and you display, you'll be displaying new PVCs. And so we want to know the exact location where those PVCs were found. And we have pleaded with those who claim that they found PVCs to take those PVCs to our state office or local government office, or leave it and call us and tell us where those PVCs are, so that we can go and pick those PVCs and then make a determination of how they arrived at the place where they arrived. But up till now, those who were making videos and those who were grandstanding in relation to those PVCs have refused to come forward. But we are investigating to see whether we can lay a hold on those PVCs.
Has any individual come out to lay claim to ownership of any of the PVCs as part of your investigation?
As of today, no. Some of the names that were called out by those who were making those videos, we have run those names on our database and we have not seen those names. But investigation is still ongoing to determine the veracity or otherwise of those videos we saw.
Okay, but you have not seen the cards physically?
No.
Okay, for instance, you see the cards, probably you will get the details of the persons, the owners of these cards. And since you have a database, you can easily trace those people if they have been distributed already.
If this, you know, in our database, we have the complete data of every registered Nigerian. And then we have their VIN numbers. So the moment we see the name or the VIN number of any individual, we are able to trace that particular individual in terms of the person's local government, in terms of the person's address, and so on and so forth. So the moment we get some of these things, we'll be in a position to trace them.
Okay, now the second phase we are going after the registration is distribution of these cards.
Yes.
What are the plans? Because some people are even advocating that cards should be after the registration should be issued immediately, just as we have this card in the bank. How do you call it? ATM cards. Why can't we? Because after the registration, getting this card is another issue. Because even before the 2019 elections, some cards were returned to the CBN because they were not able to collect their cards. So what are the plans do you have? Or after this phase, the next set of the exercise, are you planning of coming up with instant issuance of the cards after registration?
Now, let me just say, as we are moving towards the issue of distribution, let me just say that as of today, national commissioners of the Independent National Electoral Commission are in all the states where they supervise, leading this final phase of the CVR. We are trying to motivate our staff who have been on this thing for over 1 year. We want them to finish strong, and that's why national commissioners are leading the charge in their states. They are going from one state to the other, from one local government to the other, to motivate people and also to make sure that the right things are being done. So as of today, even the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission is in Kano to also motivate the staff in Kano. You know, we were in Lagos, we were in the FCT, where we even organized concert to motivate the youth for them to go and register. So the chairman is in Kano leading this charge. National commissioners are in the southeast, south, northeast, and so on and so forth, leading this final charge in terms of the CVR. In terms of the issue of distribution. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has made it clear that those who registered during the 3rd and 4th quarter of this registration will get their cards in October. That the cards will be ready in October. Those who are registering in this July, we are going to get their cards ready in November.
That's for new registrants.
For everybody. For all those who are engaged in services now.
Okay.
In this July, their cards will be ready in November. But for those who registered from 15th day of January 2022, 15th day of January 2022 and 30th day of June 2022, their cards will be ready in October.
Okay, let me hold your thoughts there. Let's go on a break. We're back, so we'll pick up from there.
Says that the Buhari-led administration has made remarkable progress,
like Lafia Transmission Station nearing completion.
Africa does not need charity, but partnerships that will promote the adequate investment
with the cooperation of all.
Sharing firsthand the experiences of reporters on the field as they bring to you weekly the beauty of Nigeria's diverse culture and the economic potentials therein. The Correspondent, development through the eye of the grassroots, showing every Monday, channel. Join us.
Now, what could make someone set out on a journey and not get to his or her destination? Now, imagine the victim who cannot reach out to these responders, who doesn't even have the phone to reach out. Hello, thank you very much for joining us on platform. I'm Ruth Agwe.
And the girl, especially if the girl is a minor, she's not yet 18 years, if she gets pregnant, realize that such girl is sent out of school and the boy is left in school.
Just park to pick the call.
So how much sensitization is the FRS?
I don't agree. A lot of people are just deaf.
All right, welcome back. Thanks for staying tuned. We're still discussing the CVR, the voters' power. Now, you were giving us the deadline of the collection dates from January to July. So go ahead.
Yes. So the point I was making is that those who register from 15th day of January 2022 to 30th day of June, their cards will be ready in October. For those who registered from the 1st of July to the 31st of July, their cards will be ready in November. So that is the issue. Now, the issue of whether people can get their cards instantly doesn't even arise. This is because the commission is a creation of the constitution and a creation of the law, and we must follow the law. Now, what we do is that the moment we finish gathering the data of new registrants, those who are doing transfer, those who have done replacement and so on, we now subject the entire data to deduplication to remove multiple and double registrants.
Okay.
Then when we finish that, then we will display the voters register in the 8,809 registration areas of this country and in the 774 local government areas for claims and objections.
Okay.
And the law says that we must do this for a period of 7 days and then use 14 days to clean up the register before we will now print the cards of eligible individuals and then begin to get them to collect. We don't distribute cards because the moment we do distribution, the cards will fall into the hands of wrong people.
Yeah.
So when these cards are ready, national commissioners of the Independent National Electoral Commission will also take charge. And we have designed a protocol for collection. We have also designed a framework on how to organize the collection in terms of what we call the electoral wards, so that people will collect these cards easily. Some civil society groups and organizations and even the Bar Association have also offered their services in terms of assisting the commission during when these cards are ready in terms of collection. And so we are going to work with civil society groups and organizations. We are going to work with the Bar Association to make the collection, to make this exercise very, very seamless, to make the collection very seamless. So there's a possibility that we will also devolve the collection that the commission has learned valuable lessons even from the CVR, and those lessons we are going to transmute them into the issue of collection. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission was in over 7 local governments in Osun State, where we observed the issue of collection of the PVCs by those who had registered. The same thing happened in Ekiti. And there are certain protocols we have put in place that we believe, if we follow, will make the exercise seamless. And we are going to follow those protocols and those designs to make sure that people do not experience hardship when they want to collect their PVCs.
And you said display of details before the final printing.
Yes.
So if, for instance, I discover spelling error or age issues, through which channel will I complain for correction?
Our officers will be there. The moment you discover it, they will give you a form, and then you enter the new information that you want to be corrected. They will also be there with the iPad, and they can key in that particular information and do the correction before we print the final register.
So where will this display take place?
This display, as I pointed out, will take place in the 8,809 registration areas, or what you call wards.
That is where you registered.
Exactly, in the wards. And it will also be displayed in the various local government areas of the country.
Okay, so but something I'm curious about. Now, for new registrants who don't know the collection process or when to go collect their PVCs, are you working with, especially for those in rural communities who may not have access to Inec's portal to get the information? Are you working with traditional heads, communities, to ensure that this information is passed across? Because it's one thing to do the registration, and it's another to collect it. Collection is very important.
I completely agree with you.
Okay.
There are 2 things we intend to do. For those who registered, especially those in urban centers, who have email addresses and who have telephone numbers, they supply their email addresses and telephone numbers when they were registering. The moment the PVCs are ready, we are going to send bulk SMS to them, and we're also going to reach them through their email addresses. Now, for those who do not have the services of email and telephone numbers, who are especially in the rural areas, we are going to work with community leaders. A ward is a collection of between 10 polling units and maybe 15 polling units. Okay. So it's a very small community. So we are going to reach community leaders, village heads, community leaders, women leaders, and civil society groups and organizations, and we are going to sensitize them when these PVCs are ready. So we do not envisage any challenge. And we're also going to make announcements on television, on the radio, and through other means, in churches, in mosques, and other places, to make sure that we get people to know that their PVCs are ready and for them to go and collect.
Another issue is underage voters. How are you addressing that? Because when you are going for registration, you don't go with your birth certificate. So how would you identify an underage voter if he is coming for registration?
Well, in the CVR, the law, the Electoral Act 2022, says that the registration officer has a discretion. 1, that if the registration officer is not sure about somebody's age, the registration officer can demand for the person's birth certificate, or driver's license, or international passport, or any other document that shows the age of the individual.
Okay, so what will happen if that individual, because so to say, we have people who just turned 18 or less than 18, but they look like they're in their 20s. We have persons like that. So how can Mia is laughing because how can the official there, detect that, okay, this person is not up or is below the age?
And you know how desperate politicians can be.
I was in one of the registration meetings, made it very clear that he was not up to 18. People from his own community. But because his speech impaired, they insisted that he should go and bring the mother for us to be sure that he is up to 18 because he insisted on registering, but you know he cannot communicate. So we asked him to go and bring his mother, and then somebody from his own community said he will also come with the mother tomorrow, but that he is sure that he is not up to 18. So without community connivance, you may not likely have underage registration.
Okay, that is if other persons are on the lookout.
Yes.
For such. Okay, yes. So let's look at Inec's collaboration. Since we've mentioned persons with disabilities, we must commend Inec for the last Osun election. We saw persons with disabilities, come out given special priority, which is very commendable. Going forward, beyond the CVR, how is I and the Commission planning to ensure that in the 2023 elections, it will, increase rather that kind of priority, that kind of attention given to persons with disabilities?
We are working with their different organizations to realize this. We are working with the Albino Foundation. We are working with their different organizations.
And there's a commission for it, you know that?
Yes, yes. We are procuring magnifying glasses. We are doing Braille ballot guide. We are printing posters to make sure that they get to understand the processes and procedures. Not only that, in the Osun election, 35 persons with disability who are doing their national youth service served as either presiding officers or assistant presiding officers. And this is the first time we're involving them as either as presiding officers or as assistant presiding officers. And we also sensitize our presiding officers in terms of priority voting for persons with disability, lactating mothers, and the aged. And so I believe that with the type of data we are gathering from the various polling units, we can now deploy assistive devices for persons with disability more appropriately in the different polling units, in the different wards, and in the different local governments. So we are not where we want to be as at now, but we'll keep on increasing our collaboration with persons with their organizations and also increase their confidence in the electoral process.
Okay, the Commission is also considering redistribution of voters in polling units because the Inec chairman in one of the functions said some polling units voter strength is up to 1,000, the next one is just 50,
yes,
and it's overcrowded. So the Commission is considering redistributing some of these voters from that 1,000 polling unit to that of the one with 50. And this PVC is attached to a polling unit.
Yes.
So if, for instance, after the exercise and you carry out this redistribution exercise, won't it affect some voters on the day? Well, probably they will go to the previous one, whereas they have been redistributed to another polling unit.
What we are trying to do, and that is one of the reasons why we want to conclude this CVR as quickly as possible, because unless we complete the CVR, it will be impossible for us to know the strength in each polling unit in terms of the distribution of voters.
Yes.
The moment we conclude that, now there are some polling units, for instance, that are in schools, and in some of the voting points in those schools that we converted them into full-fledged polling units. So if in a public school, for instance, we had 10 polling units, and we had 2 polling units and 8 voting points. Those 8 voting points have now become full-fledged polling units. There's a possibility that we took only 3 out to a different place, and that the remaining are still within. So you have a polling unit that has inside the same school that has 2,000 registered voters. Another one we have 30. Another one we have 20. One we have 10. What we intend to do is that the moment we conclude this exercise, those polling units that are in the same place, we distribute voters within those polling units. Now, some of the polling units we remove from where they are. Some of them are just a poll away.
Okay.
So
it's not difficult for the person.
It's not difficult. So we can use our state offices to also identify those ones and also redistribute voters to those polling units. So before elections, we intend to display the register in those new polling units and designate those polling units more appropriately so that people will know that those ones are polling units. Because I noticed it during the FCT area council elections, especially in Dusalaji, where we removed 2 polling units and took to a health center. People refused to go to the health center, and then I asked the polling unit to move back to the school from where we removed it. So, but if we designate the polling unit appropriately and display the names of those who are supposed to vote there ahead of the elections, people will know their polling units and they will not make mistakes. And so we are working on this. And when we get to that stage, national commissioners will also go to the states they supervise together with the resident electoral commissioners and the electoral officers in the 774 local governments to work this out. So our target is that we should have polling units that have 750 registered voters.
Maximum.
Yeah.
But there's a possibility that there will be polling units that have up to 1,000 registered voters, which is still within the parameter of what we are working on. Okay. In Osun State, any polling unit that had more than 750 registered voters, we deployed an additional Pvcs to that particular polling unit. And that was why we didn't have challenges in terms of polling units processing all the registered voters and also announcing the results on time.
But there was a challenge. I'm glad you just mentioned how that challenge will be addressed, because from the Osun election, we gathered that some of the polling units were overcrowded. So yes, I'm sure going by that will be addressed. Now, if we want to ensure that 2023, the general elections is devoid of any shortcomings, which is not inevitable, so to say, there will be shortcomings in one area or the other. But how is Inec strategizing? It's less than 7 months to ensure that we have a free, fair and credible elections. Logistics is always one challenge that pops up, but with the elections that we just saw, we're seeing Inec putting in so much effort to ensure that that is not a challenge, moving forward. So what is Inec doing?
We want to assure Nigerians that this commission will continue to improve with every election. That we are not ashamed to acknowledge our weaknesses and shortcomings. But what we normally do is that after every off-season election, we ask the question, what are those things we did so badly that we need to change completely? Yeah. And we go ahead to change them. And then we ask the question, what are those things we did but we didn't do so well that we need to improve upon? We go ahead and improve on. And then we ask the question, what are those things we did so well that we don't need to do anything? Those are the parameters we employ in assessing every election and in also moving forward. We want to assure the Nigerian people that this commission is preparing well. We have also met with the security agencies because we cannot shy away from the fact that there are security challenges in different parts of the country.
Yes.
We've met with the security agencies and we have impressed it on them that there's the need for them to degrade some of the security challenges we have in different parts of the country now to enable us have access to all the registration areas and all the polling units throughout the country to enable people to vote. And we believe that the security agencies are doing the needful to make sure that the country is secure enough for us to deploy. Because if it's not secure enough for us to deploy, there's no way we can put our staff in the harm's way. And so we are doing that. We are also having high-level discussion with those who provide transportation for our materials and for our staff on election day to make sure that nothing goes wrong in terms of our logistics and also in terms of our deployment. So we are working very, very hard to give Nigerians very good electoral service.
Mia, you want to ask a question very briefly? Because we
just
have 1 minute.
Trading on voters PVC is punishable under the Electoral Act. 500,000, 2 years imprisonment. Is it that from Ekiti down to Osun we have not gotten any to the courts to probably serve as a deterrent? And secondly, before we will let you go, let's briefly hear from you. The primaries, some elections were conducted after the official dates, and you issued a statement that you only respect the report from your state.
Okay,
so does that mean that some candidates that conducted those elections, especially the National Assembly, will not be recognized in the commission?
You have to answer that. I don't know how.
Let me just say that issues relating to primaries and so on and so forth, we'll have a better platform to deal with all those ones. if we remain on our preparations for the elections, remain on the issue of PVCs, and also remain on the issue of what we are doing to ensure that the voters have a good electoral service come 2023, I think that will serve the voters much, much better this time around. Our assurance to Nigerians is that we will not disappoint them. Our assurance to the Nigerian people is that we are going to continue to work hard to deliver good electoral service to this country, and we want Nigerians to go with us on this. The conduct of election is a multi-stakeholder venture. Every individual must do his or her own bit to ensure that we have good electoral service, and Nigerians should know that it is better for us to have a clean election than for us to have an election that will not be domestically and internationally acceptable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Festus.
So probably we invite you again for the pre-election matters.
There should be a continuation to this conversation.
Pre-election matters will be our next discussion.
Very important.
But thank you very much and keep up the good work. Sometimes I imagine how many cups of water you take after every session because you're really trying.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
All right, we've been talking about CVR, the voters' power. Of course, you know that is where your power lies, and your vote counts. That's what the Inec man has said. So go out there and get registered. It's just few days to go. That's Platform. I'm Ruth Aguele. Bye.
You can watch NTA